Thank you so much for checking out our podcast. You're watching the extended cut video version of the podcast. We still edit down the audio, but we wanted to provide a video version. We've been doing this for several months now, and the video versions are as much as 45 minutes longer than the audio versions. A lot of uncut banter between me and Calvin to start and end the episodes. I think a lot of valuable content that we usually cut out, so the edited version is a little bit shorter. But yeah, so thanks so much for checking out the show. If you'd like to check out old episodes, you can hop on over to letgoddie.com. If you like the show and value what we're doing, it would be a huge help if you'd share the episode. And also on the website, we have a support tab. If you'd like to pledge as little as $1 a month, it would help us continue what we're doing. Thank you so much for checking out the show and supporting us in sharing the stories of God at work. What's going on, buddy? What's your snack?
I have pizza rolls.
Can I see them? Oh man, send some over. We got some we got some recently that were like I don't know, half that size. They're little bitty.
There's some in the freezer still.
Yeah. I would not be angry if you made some, but they're not great. Save me some, Calvin. Send me some.
In like 5 more minutes. I'll try to save you a couple. Andrew just got home.
Yeah, don't actually save me any. We do have soft pretzels. Would you make me a soft pretzel?
Hey.
I know I don't need a soft pretzel. I also don't need this Oreo.
Yeah, so eat that Oreo.
But it's happening. All right, soft pretzel later. Tomorrow. Soft pretzel later tonight. I'll finish the box. Cool. So Calvin, this has been a day of podcasting.
It has indeed.
Thank you for doing it up, man. We're going to call our guest here in a second, give you some backstory. She's a friend that I met in San Francisco when I was there for the house church planning training back in November. And I've wanted to have people that I met there on the show for a really long time. I contacted a few, and this is the first one that's worked out. So I'm really excited to have her share her story. So, yeah. Since you have not heard her story at all, and I have, feel free to go wild.
Ask all the questions.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll go ahead and call her. Her name is Erica Harris. Just have the camera focused on you. So
just have me eat pizza rolls.
Well, you're eating more interesting things than I am. So
it's such a struggle. If I could be honest, it's like when you order pizza rolls and when you order coffee, you order coffee at a temperature that you can't actually drink it at.
Yeah.
Because it's so hot. And same thing with pizza rolls. Like if you undercook them, you can't really taste anything. But then the fact that they're like molten lava in your mouth and you're trying to eat it and not burn the roof of your mouth, like it's become quite the arduous task here. So pardon the faces I make.
Very, very first world problems there. But
it's hard.
Yeah, but the struggle. As someone whose mouth burns very easily, tell you what, buddy.
It's rough.
Yeah, most of the time, if Kendra and I get coffee at the same place, she'll finish hers before I really start mine. So I literally have to wait like 15, 20 minutes after I'm given the coffee to start it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. If it's from the Telway, you've had Telway, right, in Detroit?
Telway Burgers, bro. Ooh. Southwest Detroit.
Yeah, they have delicious sliders and surprisingly good coffee, considering it's like dirt cheap. And it's just a little slider joint in Detroit. But gosh, man, I want to say there was a time that I had the coffee around 45 minutes after getting it, and it was still piping hot, and I couldn't drink it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's craziness. Crazy.
Yeah, we need to grab Telway when you get back in town, bro.
Yes, please. I will always be up for grabbing Telway. It's been a little bit since I've had it.
Same.
Yeah.
Just a couple of years.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, because it's not necessarily close by. So
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
ever since taco stand happened, I've kind of been camping out.
Yeah. Change your life, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Best thing that ever happened in downriver.
What's that?
Says the best thing that ever happened in downriver.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you, sorry. You said taco stand.
Mm-hmm.
I love the burrito truck so much over on, was it Van Born Road? Or Outer Drive, I forget, but whatever it is, I love that so much that as soon as I heard the word taco out of your mouth, my brain was
Immediately.
just there. Yeah. But the taco stand is delicious too, yeah. Right by my parents' house. It's the place.
Minutes away.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll I tried adding Erica again. Give me time to eat my Oreo, so.
Is that a regular Oreo or double stuff?
Calvin, what do you think?
Double stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how regular Oreos still sell, but
I know,
Yeah.
right?
it's for people who don't like overly tove things.
So call back to last episode. Or 2 episodes ago, because we might actually have one in between. But the last episode that we recorded, Mitch brought up tov, which is a Hebrew word in Genesis 1. It basically means like excessively, unnecessarily good. That's the way that I heard it phrased. That when God said that his creation was good, it was not just good, the way we understand it, but like unnecessarily good, which I thought was just a cool way to put it. Like beyond what was needed. So, cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And his creation being good, double stuffed Oreos is also part of that. So I am thankful for such a grace.
All right. Oh, Kendra. Calvin asked if we got double stuffed Oreos or normal.
Okay.
Kendra didn't know normal Oreos existed until she was 12. Hey, Erica.
That's how you know you're married right. Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, we're just having an Oreo conversation here. Yeah, because I'm snacking on Oreos, but
Have you ever had Oreos and peanut butter?
Oh, wow.
I don't think so. I think I've been doing Oreos wrong my whole life now, though.
Oh, okay.
I'm curious.
Yeah, should probably get on that. I'm not going to do it right now because I don't want to be like chewing while we're talking, but yeah. Well, Erica, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. This is my co-host, Calvin.
Hi.
Hello, nice to meet you.
How are you?
Good.
Good. I love your dreads.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
How long you been working on those?
3.5, 4 years, maybe 4 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good deal. So, Erica, I don't know if I told you much about the podcast when I was in. Okay. So, yeah, when I was in San Francisco, I was just like, all right, I'm here to like learn. I'm not here to promote what I'm doing or anything,
Yeah.
So we call it Let God Die. The God is lowercase g, and the idea being that all of us who have come to know Jesus, like we've effectively had like a previous version of God, like a previous understanding that has died off, and that we've experienced him in a new light. And also seeing it from the side of like people who are rejecting God currently, that they're rejecting their current understanding of him, and not like the fullness of him. And I guess kind of with that knowledge, like rather than feeling like it's our job as Christians to like defend God's name, seeing it more so as like, well, kind of course they're rejecting him, because they haven't like really experienced him, and wanting to, I don't know, be open to break down some of those walls if we have opportunity. So that's kind of the general, very condensed down version.
I see.
So
Makes sense.
So yeah, we'll like get started with the real deal here in a second, but we typically have our guests share their stories of coming to know God, and then just kind of organically let things develop with the conversation. One thing that I did want to toss out there, if there's anything that you say that in hindsight, before we release this, that you think like, that was cool, to have in the conversation, but I'd prefer for it not to be public, like totally feel free to let me know.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll just roll with things. So yeah, I'll pray and then we'll get started.
Okay.
God, thank you so much for the opportunity to sit down with Erica and hear her story. I just ask that you be with our conversation, that what we say and what we do would edify you, would bring glory to your name, and I don't know, just that the three of us would be willing to just learn and receive what you would have us hear from the Holy Spirit. We do hope that Erica's story might relate to and connect with other listeners, but even if it's just for us to hear, I don't know, we just want to be receptive and have humble hearts to what you have. I thank you for, I don't know, just what you're going to do tonight and with Erica's story, and just thankful that she's sharing it. Give this night to you in your name. Amen.
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 All right, this is the Let God Die podcast. This is Josh.
And this is Calvin.
And our guest today is Erica Harris. I met Erica when I was out in San Francisco with the We Are Church house church planting training back in November of 2018. And Erica was one of several people whose stories that I heard that I had in mind even at the time, that like I would love to have her on the show to share a little bit of her story. So before we get into the nitty gritty of things, Erica, can you share a little bit about who you are, kind of what you do currently in life, and then we'll get to some of the backstory of all that jazz.
Yeah, who I am. I am, I guess, a lover of Jesus, and I'm a nanny because I love children as well. And I'm just living life in San Francisco. Lots of other people here who love Jesus, and it's been incredible and definitely like mind-blowing. And yeah, that's who I am and what I do. I think that sums it up.
Have you always lived in San Francisco, or?
No, yeah. Sorry, I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Shout
I
out.
lived there until Katrina. Spent the year in Mississippi, and then the rest of my time until San Francisco was spent in Houston. So I feel like I'm a New Orleans Houston like hybrid, but I definitely feel like New Orleans is home.
Right on.
Kind of.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So Erica,
So what got?
oh, go ahead,
My
Kelly.
bad. What got you from Texas to Cali?
I knew, so I was supposed to go to the very first church intensive in January 2017. I couldn't make that one because of school money, and I ended up getting to go to the one in March 2017. And for a while, they stopped. They weren't going to do it anymore unless it was going to be only for pastors. And so somehow they're like, "Hey, in 2 weeks, this church intensive that we're having will be the last one that you can go to unless we change it up again." And I was like, I don't have the money for that. And long story short, God used Reddit to get my trip paid for. And then went to San Francisco, loved it, knew God was calling me there to be a part of the women's house. Went back in August to kind of meet the women running the house, to see what the house was like, get information. And then That was August 2017. And then January 2017, I moved, and I've been here in San Francisco ever since.
And
Nice.
just for a little context, so the church intensive was like the training that I went through. So Erica, so you went there planning for that just to be short term. And do you want to share a little bit about how that turned into a long-term thing, and about the women's house that you referenced? What is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I always loved Francis and always said I would love to move to be a part of what he's doing, but also knew other communities in the country that were like kind of similar. I don't know if I ever thought San Francisco would be the top pick. But once I like came for church intensive, like I knew like I was moving there. So I went back, started preparing. Like I didn't know when or how or what. And I knew I would be a part of the women's home. And there was a lady I met during my church intensive time that would constantly text me and ask me like, "Hey, did you reach out? When are you going to do the women's home and all this stuff? Like, when you visit again, you can stay at my house." So she was like really pushing me, and so and always reached out. And so I was like, "Hey, okay, I think this weekend I could come. So can I stay at your house?" And she's like, "Absolutely." So I booked my ticket and came in August, because when I come for church intensive, I went to Huli Huli Hawaiian Grill, the nonprofit restaurant that supports the ministry, which is now called The Way SF, but it used to be Project Bayview. And so, but I didn't get a chance to see the women's home. So when I came in August, I met with the leadership and like stayed in the house for a night. And essentially, it's like a women's discipleship home where there's a 1-to-1 mentor to mentee ratio, and you pretty much live life and help people to learn to walk with Jesus in life, and work in community and that kind of thing. So yeah, like after March, I was preparing. Literally, I hadn't even met the leadership of the women's home, but I already knew that I was moving. I was like, they don't know it yet, but I know. So I totally prepared, and yeah, a lot of people in my life did not support my decision. Didn't make sense to them, you know. But like I look back and it's like the best decision I ever made, because I didn't finish school. I was like 2 classes away from my degree, and I was like, I can finish it later. I feel like I'm supposed to be doing this, and so yeah.
Just walking by faith and
That's
doing
cool,
the thing.
man.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So, Erica, when I was out in San Francisco, got to know a lot of you guys pretty well. And I felt like you were like, in particular, really personable and wanted to know us. There were a couple nights that you were just like asking like, all right, so what's your testimony?
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't get asked that a lot, but some like really cool conversations came out of that. And then I was able to hear your story. So I would love for you to share, just your story, whatever amount of detail you want to give with, your childhood and just getting you pretty much to where you got to a place that you wanted to travel across the country to be a part of what God was doing.
Yeah. Okay, so it can be long, but I'm going to give the best synopsis that I can. So essentially when I was, my mom, when she had me literally 1 month after her 18th birthday. We're like a month apart to the day. And my mom just had a not so great upbringing. So, teen mom, she ended up having right after me 2 other girls. And so at the time that I was right before I turned 5, my younger sister was like shot and killed a week before her 3rd birthday. Wow. So like, and my other sister, who's younger than her, had just turned 2. So it's like they would overlap at the same age. They were both 2, and then she was about to turn 3, and then I was about to turn 5. So I had a lot of kids close together. And so
Erica, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Your audio cut out real quick. So.
Okay, so how far back do you need?
I heard like a lot of kids close together. I think that was the last thing.
Yeah, and so essentially, so my younger sister, or my middle sister of my mom's 3 kids, She ended up being shot and killed right a week before her third birthday. And right before I turned 5. So it was really confusing because I come home. I remember my mom having bandages on. She was shot 3 times. And I didn't really know the story until I got older. But what happened was my mom's boyfriend at the time, who was the father of both of my younger 2 sisters, he like dealt drugs and stuff. And they brought my younger sister, her name was Chastity, with them to this like drug transaction. And it just pretty much went bad. And they didn't intend to kill her, but she suffered a gunshot wound to the head. My mom was shot 3 times, and then her dad was shot like a few times, and I think stabbed as well. So he didn't survive, and she didn't survive, but my mom did.
Wow.
And the crazy thing is, it's like when I hear talk about like, I don't know, I want to do air quotes like the inner city and like also like gun control and violence. I never think about myself as being affected by that because I forget that that's like my story. Because my dad also, he wasn't as involved because he is physically disabled, like half his body's paralyzed. And that was because he was shot in a drive-by.
Gosh.
And the people that shot him, he knew they intended to shoot someone else's car, but his car was like a shade.
You're good.
Yeah.
Oh, Calvin, I think you meant to mute your microphone, but you turned off your video.
I did for a second. I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. So like he didn't. Yeah. So they didn't intend to shoot him, but his car was like a shade blue different and like had tinted windows or didn't, and the other car was like the opposite. So yeah, he was sprayed to drive by that forced him half his body to be paralyzed. I think that happened when I was like a year old or something. So he was kind of absent from my life, but it really wasn't by choice because he was limited and my mom was difficult, and so he just did the best he could, but he just couldn't do much. So and yeah, so that was like some of my childhood. My mom never really had all of her children for the most of our lives or together. I was the child she had the most. And I still live with lots of different people. I didn't consistently begin to live with her until I think 13. Maybe around 12 or 13 after Katrina hit and we moved to Texas. But kind of other short things I always mention is just like when I was 8 years old, I was like super suicidal because my mom could be very emotionally, mentally abusive, sometimes physically abusive. And yeah, I was just super suicidal. And it was during that time I would cry myself to sleep singing Jesus Loves Me. And, God gave me a vision then as a kid. And I wouldn't say I believed then, but I believed in God. I knew he was with me. I knew he was acting, but a lot of things didn't make sense. But this vision just basically was what kept me from like killing myself. And it kind of just gave me hope. Like, this is not the end. There's more. Just like persevere. And
do you mind sharing what that was, or some detail, or do you even remember?
No, I remember it very vividly. I tend not to share it fully what it means to me, but what essentially it was, what I will share about it is that it was almost like the dream very clearly said, you're like in this dark tunnel, but there's a light at the end. So if you just keep walking, you'll get to that. And also kind of like, and basically also let me know that everything that I was going through, all the pain, all the hurt, wasn't simply just for me to endure it, but also to be able to help other people at some point in life.
And you kind of had that, I guess, understanding as when you were like 8 years old ish.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like very clear. There's a little bit more to it that I feel like God was saying that would happen at the end, but that's something I'm still kind of waiting on, and something I've learned to kind of like not necessarily share as much. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, but I definitely had an understanding when I was 8 years old, and so when I would get sad, when I would think about committing suicide, I was like, no, it's gonna make God upset, and I just gotta keep pushing. And so my whole life after that was like keep pushing, And yeah, I think one thing that I've recently started sharing when I share my testimony, because I think it's deeply impacted me and my relationship with God, but I don't think I realized the full extent of it until recently. Is like, because I didn't grow up with my mom, three main maternal figures in my life were my mom, my grandmother, and my godmother. But my godmother, I probably could honestly say, was like my rock. She was the one that I loved the most, even more than my mom, who I admire, who was just the most like loving and like, because my grandma could be just as abusive as my mom was. So, but you know, my grandma was jealous of her. They were friends. And so my grandma told me when I was around 8 years old that my godmother didn't love me the same that she loved her own children, who were about 10 years older than me. And that bothered me because I thought, you know, I loved them all pretty equal. Or maybe, at the time, I don't think I realized I loved my godmother more, but now I could say that, which kind of sounds harsh, but it's true. And so when she said that, really bothered me. And so I was talking to my godmother on the phone, and I said, "Hey, Nanny," that's like the name or term for godmother in New Orleans. Everyone calls them Nanny. So I called her and I said, "Hey, Nanny, like, my grandma told me you don't love me as much as you love your own kids." Because she asked what was wrong, because she could tell I was upset. And so when I told her that, her response was, "Well, Ari, you know, I gave birth to them, so I can't love them the same as you." And I think from that moment onward, it just really wrecked me a lot. I think it contributed to like the depression that I faced, like from around 8 years old onward. It wasn't the only factor, but it was like a major part in that. And like, she never really knew. I never really expressed it, but I always, from that moment, doubted she loved me. And she did a lot for me. Like, I don't even know if I would have made it through some stuff without her, but I always kind of doubted that love was like the motivating factor behind her actions. I attributed to other things. And so
it was kind of like your grandma like planted that seed of doubt about your godmother's love, and that just kind of wrecked you, huh?
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah, probably was the biggest, like most foundational, like, yeah. I think it's like was more impactful than some of the physical abuse and mental abuse, emotional abuse from my mom, because it's like the one person who I believe like really loved me and cared for me, I found out didn't, you know. And then I feel like, well, I don't have anyone, no one loves me, and because of that, still today struggle to receive love from people. I even wrestle with like, does God really love me? You know, like lots of rejection, especially because of stuff that when I tried to express these things to my godmother about 2-3 years ago, she didn't take it well, which turned out to her fully rejecting me, which was devastating for me. Since then, we have a relationship now, but it's hard when you keep something in for like 20 years and then you know, yeah. So it's still being worked out, but yeah, definitely a really difficult thing that happened in my life that I didn't really acknowledge or share or talk about until. So yeah, I can look back and say for sure that 8 years old when I started to experience like real depression, like suicidal thoughts and hopelessness and just all kinds of stuff. But that vision God gave me, like, really became like my rock, because anytime I thought, it was like, no, just push it. And so, yeah, around 10 years old, Hurricane Katrina happened. I ended up being on the news for that. So if you like Google Erica Harris, Hurricane Katrina, I was on like news and that kind of thing a few years ago.
So how were you affected by Katrina?
Yeah, so I was there in the city when the hurricane actually hit. So I had to walk through the water, sleep in the Superdome. So as a 10-year-old, it was about a week and a half before my 11th birthday. So when I was in the Superdome, I got interviewed as a 10-year-old, like, you know, and a few years ago, I think it was 2015, for the 10-year anniversary, they like found me with a private investigator and then like interviewed me again. And so that's when I was on like national news for the weekend. So yeah, the whole ordeal, but I was a very weird child and love history, still do. My major in college was. And so my thought going through it, I wasn't really terrified. I was more like, this is a huge historical moment that I get to be a part of. I did get a little scared when we got to the Superdome because kids were going missing, and I saw men going to the women's bathrooms and heard about what was happening. So, like, after that point, we didn't use the bathroom in the actual bathrooms because they were dangerous. Like, so, like, in hearing, little girls' names get called out when they're missing, like, that was kind of scary. Getting sick because I couldn't eat any more MREs. They were making me sick, like the smell from when you put the water in the bag. Like, you ever had an MRE, but like the smell when you heat it up, it just made me sick. So I stopped eating. I was getting sick, and we ended up eventually leaving, and like that's a whole like crazy long story. But we ended up in Texas.
Yeah, Erica, the audio cut out again. Right after you said you ended up in Texas.
Yeah. Basically ended up in Texas, in the shelter. Don't know for how long. We went to live with my grandma in Mississippi, and then my mom got a house through HUD in Cypress, Texas, which is a suburb north of Houston. And so we ended up going there. And there, living with my mom, that's when I actually lived with her from like 7th grade onward. And it was rough because I was my own person and my mom did not like the person I was, which is very different. But it's hard to characterize what that was like. But essentially, like, I did really well in school. That was what I viewed as like my saving grace. So I made it like a point to do well in school because it was like, this is my shot, I started working as soon as I turned 16, 40-hour weeks in high school. We ended up being homeless my senior year of high school. It was rough. My grades like slipped, but I was still an honor graduate, but just wasn't as high. Like I had high expectations of myself. I remember crying as I was getting this huge scholarship award because I didn't do better, and because I wasn't going Ivy League, and because of all this other stuff. I had so much pride in grades, which I think was my benefit of that stuff happened because God really I struggled with pride, and I would have not been like, I'm like, God kind of helped me.
Humbled you a little bit.
It humbled me a little.
I think the audio is getting covered by something. I feel like.
See, I have my hands on the side of my phone, so I don't know.
Huh.
I can hear you great now. We can definitely hear you now.
Yeah. But I was crying because I was cum laude instead of magna cum laude or summa cum laude, like stuff like that. Totally. I was like, I got a $16,000 scholarship, but I could have, got a full. I was like, I was so embarrassed that I wasn't going like to Columbia, because I had dreams and none of those things happened because life just didn't go for me the way I planned. But it's cool. Like ultimately, I came to the Lord. I grew up in the South, so like this whole time, if you would ask me growing up if I was a Christian, I said, yeah, you believe Jesus? Absolutely, I believe in Jesus. But when I went to college, I went to UT Arlington, which is outside of Dallas, Texas, and I pretty much like in that moment realized I maybe didn't believe in the Bible like I thought I did. Because I was like, my grandma talks a lot about Jesus, talks about the Bible, but if she's a Christian, then like I don't want any part in that because she's crazy. She's a hypocrite. I don't, she's evil. Like I feel like my grandma was like the most evil person that I know ever. And I just was like, I want no part in Christianity if that's it. And so I remember sitting on my bed in college and being like, do I really believe in God even? Like, am I atheist? Am I agnostic? And so I remember repeating to myself, like trying on these thoughts, like, there is no God, there is no God, there is no God, to see if I believed it. And I couldn't really commit to that. Like I knew for a fact there was God because it was like God had really presented himself to me in my life, even though I didn't fully understand. Like I knew for a fact God existed, like without a doubt. I thought about the vision, like, this is what literally kept me every time something bad would happen. When I'd be crying, I read the story of Joseph because that really spoke to me. So it's like, no, God is real. And then I just kind of went to this whole God is love. relativism, you know, your truth, my truth, whatever. Then I ended up transferring from UT Arlington to go to University of Houston. So I still had my job at Target where I lived, and my sister was going into foster care. And I was 19. I thought, okay, she's 16. She can live with me. She can work, and I can help my sister, you know. And that was a terrible idea. But from that, this girl I went to church with kept inviting me, or this girl I worked with kept inviting me to church. And I really didn't want to go because I was like, no, I'm good. But I decided I had a Christian like professor. And he works for an organization called Core Love. They have orphanages in Haiti. And he's like, you know, I'm a Christian. You don't have to be a Christian, but if you want to come to Haiti to like volunteer with orphans, like you can come with my organization. It's Christian, but you can come. And I was like, well, I'm Christian and never left the country, and I would love to help, you know, orphans in Haiti. So I ended up going. Well, the night before we flew out to go to Haiti, this girl who kept inviting me to church, I promised her, I said, listen, okay, I promise you next Sunday I'll go, which was the Sunday before I flew out this trip. And I'm like, dang it, I don't want to go, but I made a promise, so I have to keep it. That's like my thing. So I went, and the pastor, I say who it was because he's pretty famous now, and I don't really love him now, but
yeah, you can skip the name. That's fine.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. I almost said it, but like I was like, I don't even know because I don't want to. Anyways, he was really funny, you know, and really caught my attention, and I really liked it. You know, it was a young adult service at also a very well-known church. I mean, I was in Houston. Everybody, it was Lakewood Church. I will admit, I went to Lakewood Church. You know, Joe Osteen's church. But I went to a Sunday night, which is like the young adult service, and so really small. And yeah, this guy was really funny, and I enjoyed it. I was like, okay, this was cool. It wasn't the worst experience. So I get on this plane, go to Haiti, and I wouldn't say I started to believe in, but it was like, I would say probably a turning point because it made me go, Erica, you grew up Christian. And so when I left this mission trip, after spending a week there, I remember challenging some of the believers. They're like, yeah, the Bible, this and this and this. And, you know, I'm like a know-it-all. So when I leave, though, I'm like, you know, I just like going to church again. You know, I went to that church. It was pretty cool. But on this trip, you know, like, we're in the South. Like, I should go to church. So I started going to church. And, you know, through going on Sunday nights, I started going Sunday and Wednesday, like, this guy who was preaching started to talk about the gospel in a way that I started to finally kind of get why Jesus died. I don't think I ever really understood my whole life. Like, you hear Jesus on the cross, I don't think I got, like, why he died, you know?
Yeah.
And so he would explain it like, you know, you have a debt and you can't pay it. And then, like, he writes the check and he would just talk about, you know. And I was like, oh, I'm starting to get it, you know? And so they were advertising at the young adult service this Passion Conference. It's 2014. I was like, this looks like fun. I'm gonna go to that. Looks like fun, you know. So I decided to go to Passion, and you know, like I didn't have one of those moments where something someone said clicked to me or whatever. But I remember Beth Moore going through this like 20 declarations like of the Bible. She's like, if you know believe in Jesus is like coming back, say I agree. You believe the Bible's an inerrant word of God, say I agree. You believe God is triune, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, say I agree. And I was like saying I agree because I was with this girl from my job, a different girl who I just met, and I felt like I had to be with Christian and agree. But I was really going, I don't think I believe in this stuff. Like, I don't know if these statements, like, I kind of take offense to them. I don't know if it sounds crazy. I don't believe in this stuff. And yeah, right up until the very end, I remember they were like raising funds to make Bibles for like some Middle Eastern country, and I was like, I shouldn't give money to this because like they're changing people's cultures and changing their religions, and that's wrong. But I did anyway to look good, and yeah, like it was ending, and I was totally like convinced. Yeah, I'm not a Christian, I don't think. And right as we were leaving, literally, the last song was being sung. So cliche, but it was Oceans, and Hillsong was singing. And I'm just singing the lyrics and have my hands up, and all of a sudden I hear God speak to me because I was going through a lot of stuff with my sister and my mom, and it's like, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. And all of a sudden it was like, bam, Holy Spirit. And I remember being like in this trance, and I talked to my friend about it later, but she was like, yeah, you kind of disappeared and left. Like, we didn't even know where you went. Like, as it ended, and I was just in this, like, being, like, filled with the Spirit. Like, I just felt the Spirit of God. I was, like, just beeline to my car. I got to my car, and then I was like, it was literally, like, the veil was torn from my eyes. Like, I just could see everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, God, I turned my back on you. Like, you were there for me in my life. Like, you were there for me as a kid. And I currently just turned my back on you. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, a lot of these things don't make sense. You know, I'm really like an intellectual person, but I was like, you know, Jesus, if you're real, there'll be an answer for these questions that I have. And I'm just going to figure it out. And I repented. I like all of a sudden felt like the greatest high I could ever imagine. I literally felt like the woman at the well. Like, I just wanted to run into everyone. I called a different friend, the one who kept inviting me to church, who I now don't actually believe has the Holy Spirit, unfortunately, because she just, yeah, it's really heartbreaking to me. But I call her and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I totally experienced the Holy Spirit. And she's just like, I'm like, oh, okay, like, what's that like? Just kind of like, I don't know. And all of a sudden, I completely changed. So people that, it's like one girl who was really a believer at my job, like real believer. I used to like annoy her and irritate her by arguing with her. And all of a sudden, I'm like reading the Bible and I'm like this, and everyone's just like, what happened to you? So it's just like instantly. The first book I got, so I was still going to Lakewood Church, you have a huge bookstore. I saw The Case for Christ. So that was the first book that I read. And then I was like amazed. I'm like, how come no one ever told me these things? It's like real facts and all this stuff. And like, then from reading The Case for Christ, that's when I decided to start reading the Bible, starting in John. And back then, I wish I could do that now. Like, I would read for like 4 or 5 hours. I wouldn't even know what time it is. I just look up and be like, dang, I've been reading for 4 hours straight. And yeah, God just like wrecked me. And yeah, I remember just getting to another like maybe 20 point. I remember reading through John, I believe, and getting to the point where Jesus says, like, if anyone wants to be my disciple, you have to pick up your cross, deny yourself, and follow me. And I like stopped there and I was like, whoa, that's a big commitment. And then I was like, do I want to commit to that? And I was like, yeah, I do. I remember I just kept reading. So yeah, ever since then, it's been uphill and downhill and uphill and downhill, you know, a steady incline up, but not
good,
not a straight line, you know. So
that is awesome. That's really, really awesome. Like, to know that Holy Spirit, like, the Lord spoke to you in a place where like no one had to convince you of his presence. Like, you knew his voice when you heard it.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of like how you definitely know it's real. Because like the Lord does speak to people in different ways. And the fact that you weren't convinced into believing and you tried everything you could to not believe, and yet still like the Lord reached out and grabbed you like, no. Like, I'm not letting you get away that easy.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's really sick.
Yeah. It's crazy to me. I'm like, I wasn't really seeking. I know some people do. But he totally just like reached out. You know, it like blows my mind sometimes when I think about it. For sure.
Yeah,
kind of sounds like the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so sick. Yeah, it's really cool. Just like I guess that you can identify, you know, like right when that happened. I guess like what was that like in your car? I know you referenced I guess kind of like seeing the past in a different light. I'm really interested in like this idea and this reality. It's not just an idea, but like of God like redefining our pasts and like really just kind of it. Oftentimes like in those moments of like just Holy Spirit revealing things and just becoming real to us, just being like, oh, that's like what you were up to, or that's how you were there with me. I don't know if you want to touch on any of that.
Yeah, I think I'll say one of the biggest things that I love about the way I came to know God is that when I prayed and repented, it wasn't like a repeat after me prayer. It was like, this is my heart. And my heart is like, I see how wicked and evil I was, and that you're like calling out to me. And so I'm accepting. And, you know, but yeah, looking back, it's like I always knew without a doubt God was with me. So it wasn't like I saw that in a new way, but I saw my own, like, because, you know, like, I wasn't like a bad kid, you know, like, to say, like, I was actually talking to someone last night about this. Like, most kids who have a mom like I did, my mom was very, like, promiscuous. Men is, like, her choice of drug. But it's like, most girls either run to that. They start to seek validation from men. I was the complete opposite. So I never, like, had any, like, I avoided boys. I studied hard. I worked hard. I didn't do drugs. I didn't get drink. I didn't party. You know what I mean? So, like, the problem is too that people in my life, like my assistant principal from high school that I love dearly, they didn't see as much of a transformation, like in the sense of, well, you've always been good. You know? So that's the hard thing too. Being from the South, they're like, they saw me talking about God more, talking about scripture more, but it was like, but they never saw, like, they didn't see me as being evil or me as being wicked, because they're like, what'd you do? You know, what'd you do, Erica? You know, you didn't do anything wrong. You were like, you were the child that people wish they had, you know, which is, and so then it's like, oh. So even now, like, a lot of the girls I mentor see me as being perfect, and I'm like, no, I was so selfish and so, like, caught up in what I wanted, and, you know, like, yeah, there's just, like, so many ways in which I just, because, like, I don't know, it's like when I saw that I turned my back on God, it was more like, I stopped seeking him. I stopped looking for truth. I kind of just, like, made my own version of the truth and was satisfied in what I thought. You know, it's like, the Bible talks about how, like, fools say there is no God, but fools also, like, create gods. You know, like, I'm thinking of Isaiah, like, 43 through, like, 45, where it talks about how people create idols within them. Was the idols that they, like, use, that they would make from wood, are the same idols that they would use the same wood to, like, make fires. The same, like, wood they use to make, like, you know, money. Like literally, I think a modern day example would be, like, we idolize money, like paper. Literally something that if we needed fire because it was cold, we would burn. Or, like, something that paper, like, that's used to make money is also the same paper used to make toilet paper. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we idolize things that at the end of the day, it's like nothing, you know? And so, I definitely, like, had idols of, like, what it meant to be successful, you know, what it meant to be smart, what it meant to be better than other people. And, like, I definitely idolized comfort and security and money, you know? And so, yeah, I just stopped being a truth seeker and kind of put God on the back burner. And this was like, even though, like, he protected me, not from, like, he allowed difficult things to happen, but he still protected me from the worst of it. I mean, my life could have been terribly worse. Like, my mom, luckily, wasn't, like, a drug addict. She didn't, like, she was physically abusive, but not, like, I would get beat every day when I came home from school. Like, you know, like, I'm not trying to, I guess, diminish, like, things that happen, but I definitely feel like God was gracious to me in a lot of ways. By also, like, yeah, just my sin not having the consequences of maybe some other, like, sin avenues that I could have went down, you know? Not to say, like, I don't know, not saying it's better, but there's different consequences of different sins, and I could have just, yeah. Again, well, I had definitely had consequences financially, for sure, for some of my sins, but I don't know, I just looked back and was like, I wasn't faithful, essentially. I think that's what it boiled down to. I wasn't faithful to who God was, and he was always faithful to me. He was totally always faithful. He was there, and I guess in me being, my unfaithfulness stemmed, I can see now, from, like, impatience, you know, because we're called a lot to wait on the Lord, and, like, Joseph was the story I clung to as a child, but, like, Joseph, I forget how many years from the time he got the vision until he was, like, the right hand of Pharaoh, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas I was like, God, you know, I kind of, like, cast aside the vision. I'd hold on to it in dark times, but I didn't hold on to it, and even, like, good times either. I just was like, you know, I'm done with that. I can, like, do my own thing. I can work hard. I can be successful. I can, you know, I bought into those lies of, like, self-sufficiency and autonomy and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. I mean, like to have that realization is such a blessing because, like, for a lot
Mm,
of people whose, I guess, like their sin doesn't necessarily manifest on the outside. For
Mhm.
you personally, like for a lot of us who've come to know Jesus, like we know the depths of our internal hearts and where we were before we came to know the Lord, and like what you were saying earlier about like the fact it was like you weren't just like this person who was just out to do bad, but like you were just content to live life apart from God, and like you were okay with that. And same with me before I came to know Jesus too. Like I was basically in a place where I felt like, well, if the Lord doesn't show up, I'm gonna for damn sure have a plan B to make sure like I can take care of myself or like figure things out on my own. And part of that realization is that in and of itself, like that thing is evil, and like
mm-hmm.
to have that realization is definitely like God's spirit in you. Like you weren't created to do life apart from Him, and like neither was I. But for Him to extend that invitation toward us anyway, I think that's like so beautiful. Even still in our like I guess our haughty attitudes of thinking that life apart from God can't possibly be that bad when really it was everything we weren't created for.
Yeah.
Mm.
Definitely.
I think a lot about, and this is what I relate to most in like the story of the prodigal son. I relate most to the older brother, who, just kind of has I guess some type of like self-righteous, judgmental attitude towards a younger brother, thinking that it's more about like what I can achieve or like achieving goodness, rather than recognizing that my best is nothing if without Jesus. With
Yeah.
Jesus, Jesus changes everything, obviously. But I was just thinking about like how revealing it is that people do have that type of attitude, like to your story, Erica. And I think people have had that reaction like to my story as well, where it's just kind of like, yeah, well, what was wrong before? And it's just like, I
You
was
don't get
doing it
it.
apart from Jesus, like,
Everything.
and like, the reasons that I was doing things, they were not out of a reaction to His love for me. They were out of a trying to think that I needed to achieve His love or, be in His good graces rather than just live in the grace that's already been given that I can't achieve, and recognize that
Right.
there's so much freedom in that.
Yeah. And if anything too, people saw me as like needing to be saved from things, like external things, and not necessarily like any internal problem with me. Like it's a hard thing. So like it's like, oh, people see me as, oh, you've done so well because you persevered through these circumstances, and it's like, yeah, don't get me wrong, the hand I was dealt was pretty bad, especially because where I was going to school, mind you, was a predominantly white, upper middle class, like suburb that we totally lucked up in being able to live there. Like I remember one time a kid in my class make the statement, anyone who lives in our neighborhood cannot be poor. And my teacher was like, you don't know that. But she also knew at the time this kid was saying this, I was like homeless, and I don't think she was just saying it because of me, but she just like was like, how dare you make a statement like that? And he's like, no, you can't, And I just remember sitting back. I still remember that moment and what kid it was. Like, dude, you have no idea what you're talking about. And that was really hard too, being around a lot of like entitled kids who got everything handed to them, which like pushed me more. But yeah, I even think, but God's like so gracious and so merciful because like everything we have is from Him, and even though like I was definitely disadvantaged, like God has blessed me and helped it give me different advantages and different gifts that made it easy for me. Like school came easy to me. Like I would, sleep through one of my classes like literally 90% of the time, and I'd make an A. It was like math, And the school was like, "How do you make an A? You literally sleep." And she lets you, and I try so hard, and I have a C, and I'm like, So it's just like I look at that, and I'm like, man, that's a like gift from God because, luckily with all the stress from other things, like, I was still able, like, by His grace, to not end up worse off in some regards. But definitely, I look back and I'm my life definitely didn't play out the way I wanted it to, but I think it's the best that it possibly could be. Like I'm literally in awe. Like I live in San Francisco now, in a studio apartment by myself, which is like unheard of. Everyone who lives in San Francisco, unless you're making a ton of money, which I'm not, like they don't live alone. Everyone has roommates, you know. Someone was like, you realize how? I'm just like, it's crazy because last year around this time, it's end of January, July, I was getting ready to leave the women's home. I was an intern. I had no money. Spent through all my savings when I moved here. I couldn't work. Like I was freaking beyond broke. And now somehow I'm living in the most expensive city in the US in my own studio. Like it just doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, you can't leave. You didn't even finish your degree and all this stuff. And I'm like, in my car, I had a car that was, oh, Josh, did you ride in my car before I got a new car? Yeah. So
I forgot about it, but I forget who it was. It was me and one or two other people, but we were like, Erica, like, we might die tonight. It was rough. And you were like, oh, it's been like this for a while.
Yeah. No one had thought I should drive my car 2,000 miles across the country. I mean, like, cracked axle, front struts were bad, back struts were bad, no AC, the catalytic converter was broken. I mean, probably even more stuff. And, you know, I was like, one of my friends wanted to take the road trip with me, but she was afraid something would happen. And I was like, it's okay. Like, it'll be fine. But I knew, like, if God wanted me there, I was going to get there. And if I broke down, then, like, whatever. But I remember a few times doubting, like, oh, my God, if I break down in the middle of nowhere, like New Mexico, I don't know how to change a tire. And hopefully I have cell service, you know. But it was fine. I totally made it. And it was all God, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Are you still driving that thing?
No, I got a new car.
Okay, good.
At the very end of December. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good deal. Humble beginnings.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So Erica, so that was, I guess, a few years ago, right? That you really had that experience and gave your life to Christ.
Yeah, February 15th, 2014.
Right on. So one question that we ask sometimes on the podcast is like, if you were to think about like who you believe God to be in the past compared to who you've experienced him to be now, what's kind of like the biggest thing that jumps out at you of like that crazy shift of understanding in your heart? Who did I say God to me then? No. You know, I want to say faithful because it's easier. But I think the other one that I'm seeing, but I can't say I fully understand it now. I think I'm still grasping and like understanding is like God is like love. But like I said, I still struggle with that a lot. But I think God is showing me more and more what it means and through other people. This is again something I struggle with. But it's like I'm supposed to be going to Houston in a few days and I'm dreading it. And the reason I'm dreading it is because I don't want to leave San Francisco. Because I love the life I have here, but because of the community that I have here. And like I really could say, like, I don't know if a year ago if I could say this as passionately, but like I love the people like here, like my community here. Like when I went to New Orleans, you know, for the first time like 5 years in May, I went for like 4 days. And on the second day I was like, oh, I miss San Francisco, I want to go back. And I've never felt that way about a place before, like ever. Like I'm literally so excited to come back to San Francisco and I haven't even left yet. You know? Like
Wow.
I'm so bummed that I'm happy I'm going, but I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna be away from San Francisco for like 6 days. It's like a long time. Like that's how I feel because I like literally love everyone here so much. And so God has really been showing me about like his love through people and what that looks like. And like loving, like God loving us loving people. Like it's not necessarily an easy thing. It's not about feeling. You know, it's very much about like God desiring our best. When we love people, we desire their best, and sometimes that means God correcting us, allowing us to go through hard times. Sometimes it's Him allowing, Him being silent, right? Even though He's with us, because He wants us to grow and exercise our faith. And so, yeah, I think I'm more and more understanding God and Him being love, and also Him calling us to be vulnerable with Him. I think sometimes I pray and I think I'm being honest with God, but I'm really holding back. And it's like, He already knows, and I've learned this before, but I find myself still like faking out. And it's like, Erica, just like, be real with me, And in that, I'll say, like, I just remember this. I've been like thinking about God like as a friend more, and I have friendship with Him. And so one thing that like recently, when I was spending time with the Lord, I was just like praying and kind of like, because that day I was struggling with like, God, are you hearing my prayers? Like, do you hear me? Because I didn't feel like He was hearing me that day. And so I went to Golden Gate Park. I was like laying on the blanket, reading my Bible, and then I started praying. I just like lay down on the blanket and look up at the sun, and I just like started talking to Him like I would a friend. And I just kind of like visualized Him laying next to me, and I really felt in that moment God was hearing my prayers. And so I think sometimes it's just like, I think God is holy and to be feared, but He also has made it possible for us to like draw near to Him and be close to Him. And it says like to boldly like approach the throne of grace with confidence. And so it's also being like, you're His friend, and He just wants you to just like pour your heart out to Him, And so I find myself having to remind myself that I could do that, and that He actually like cares and stuff. But in me, that's also created a heart that when I now pray, I don't want to like pray and ask God for the things that I desire, or even good things, right? Like, I just want to ask Him because they also glorify Him and show me who He is, like. There's so many things that I want that are like good things that God may want from me, but I'm like, God, listen, I want these things not just because of what they are, but I want them because like I believe that they can help me to see You more clearly, and they can help me to grow in You. And if they're not going to do that, then I don't want them.
Yeah.
Like, that's been how I've started to pray for things, because right now we're like reading through Numbers, and I remember like when God's like about to kill all the people, and they're like, and Moses like, no, don't kill them, because if you kill them, people are gonna say you brought them out of Egypt only to like kill them, and they're gonna say it wasn't God who brought them out of Egypt. And He's like, God, your name's at stake, and so God doesn't do it. And so I just think about that, like, God, there are things I want, like to be a mom. I love kids, and I know how difficult they are because I work with them, and some days I don't think I want it. But I'm like, ultimately, I believe that like You can glorify Yourself in my life this way, and it can help me to see You more clearly in a lot of ways that I've struggled to because of my own childhood. And so I pray that You glorify Yourself in my life in this way, instead of just saying, God, I want to be a mom because it'll be fun. Like I recently saw when I was reading through Numbers. It's like, I only want it if it's going to glorify You in my life, and I really believe that it will, because of some of the challenges that are going to be presented, not because of the highs of it, but because I know it's challenging in so many ways. But I think ultimately it'll help me to see more clearly, Lord. So like, I'm asking You for Your name's sake in my life, for You to be glorified in my life. And it just feels like different to pray in that way for things, especially because I'm really like believing it. But another day I was like, maybe I don't want to pray like that, because then God might, like answer, but you're like, I don't know if I wanted it, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's sick though, because I mean, I think so often it's easy to just be like, all right, like God will give you the desires of your heart. The context that we usually talk about it here is that it's more so that God will give you His desires. He will place His desires in you. But yeah, also exactly what you said, that it's not just like, oh, these are now my desires, but more so like with what end in mind, with end to glorify Him, not that we would be consumers, obviously, but well, maybe not obviously, because I think I still find myself praying that way. So
yeah, and ultimately kind of like remembering too the fact that, and this one's like a hard one for me even still, the Lord knows me better than I know myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And like, I forget that way more times than I ever remember it. And even right now in the season I'm currently in, it's like the things in my heart that I know and I feel in my heart that I want may not even be things that I want, but I think I want. But he ultimately knows what I need. And I have to rest in him meeting the needs, because if I have what I want and it takes me away from him, then I lose everything. You know?
Yeah.
So like it's a work of like knowing, for one, like admitting to yourself that you don't know yourself as much as you think you do. Then admitting the fact that the Lord knows you more than you know yourself. And then two, for him to actually meet and provide for that desire that he's already placed in you, that he can meet it the best way that only he can. And it requires a lot of trust.
Yeah.
a lot of trust. But if you actually like, and like my prayer for the season is too, is like, as I continue to endure through it and persevere, that like when that need is met and when he does come through, I'm going to see a side of him and be so much more grateful that I waited than if I tried to like push things ahead myself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in that too, one thing I learned recently, it clicked, and I was like dealing with some roommate stuff when I had a roommate before. And I forget how it was said to me, but this idea clicked. Is like, sometimes God is like, I want to give you these things, but here's the thing. I love you too much, and I know you. You'll idolize it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to give
Good
you
word.
anything that like you're going to put before me. Because one, I don't want, like, it's not good for you to ever like worship. This is worship the Lord your God, like, only. So I'm not going to give you an idol.
Right.
And two,
Yeah.
idol worship isn't good for you either, you know? It destroys us. And so it's like, yeah, like God's like sometimes like, oh, Erica, like I really want to give that to you, but see, I don't think you can handle it right now. And there's so many times I've tried to like make the vision that God has given me when I was a kid, like aspects of it. There's certain times I've tried really hard to like make things happen, to make this like dream come about, and it didn't work. And I'm so thankful because I'm like, oh man, that would have been terrible, you know?
Right.
But, like, I just would not have been able to handle it. Like, I've matured a lot in my time in San Francisco. And I was talking to this girl who has recently met the Lord and has been walking with him for like a year or so now. You know, and she's like trying to pursue Christian dating, but it's just really not a good idea for her. And I told her, I said, you know, I've been walking with the Lord for 5.5 years, and I'm so thankful I didn't meet nobody 3 years in, even a year ago, because
Right.
I was like, yeah, I mean, I could have matured with it, but it would have been much more difficult, I think, because of the areas that I didn't grow in. I was like, I'm just now thinking, okay, maybe it could be a good idea. And I was like, just seek him, because he's not, like, if you try to make these things work, like, you want him to give it to you, because he's only going to give it to you when you're ready, you know, when you can handle it. There's like, I would love to have a really close like best friend right now, but I feel like God knows, Erica, if you get that right now, you might end up putting it in front of me, and I love you too much to do that to you, so I'm just gonna withhold it, you know. And but it pushes me to seek him more, because the more my heart is after him, the more my heart matures in him, then it's like then I know I'm working towards being able to have that desire met, but in a way that I know it won't like I won't put it before him. So it's like it pushes me to seek him more, to grow, so I can have the thing that he wants to give me without putting it in front of him. So yeah, that's something that I've like noticed majorly. And sometimes too, just being aware that sometimes God gives us the things that we desire, but maybe not in the way we expected, so we don't even see it. Like I realized me having my own apartment in San Francisco, like as a kid growing up, I always had this heart to want to have a home that I could host people in, that I could do stuff in, that if someone needed to live with me, they could, you know, and like I never thought of like a studio would be it, but my studio is pretty big. I've thrown like a few parties here for people's birthday, and it can fit like 20 people in the main space. Then I have a whole separate kitchen, and like most people pay 3 times what they would pay 3 times what I pay for this space. And you know, it's like, God, how did this happen? So like Kevin, my pastor, says like, faithful little, you know, faithful with much. So it's like God can be. He gave me this place, and it's not what I imagined, but it could be just a smaller version of what he wants to give me in the future. But he's like also seeing how I handle this. And so I realized that I'm like, thank you, God, for this studio, because I do have a place. It's not what I thought, you know, living in Texas. I thought maybe I have a house with like a few extra rooms, but it's still a huge blessing. So it's also having eyes to see what he has done and what he's doing too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of our old pastors, me and Calvin went to the same church in Michigan when I lived in Michigan, and one of the pastors, the way that he talked about that kind of thing is like the passage where Jesus says, what good father if a son asks for bread would give him a stone, and he just identified, he was just like, something like with that story with Jesus talking, Jesus never says that the good father will give you what you initially asked for,
Right.
He said that he gives good gifts, to those who ask him. Yeah, exactly what you just said, like that oftentimes the things that God does give us, we don't identify as good, because we're looking for what we asked for in the first place, or, we have our mindset on what we want, rather than accepting gladly what he has for us and seeing that might be an answer to prayer. But, if we have our eyes on ourselves and what we wanted in the first place, we totally miss it.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Good word, dude.
Well, Erica, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you for letting me share.
Yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate your openness and sharing your story. And yeah, we'll be posting this soon, so I'll shoot you a message if you want to share it about as well.
Gotcha. Well, thank you. You guys have a good night. I know it's late on your end.
Yeah, it's like 11:30.
It's something like that. It's not terribly late, but was it like 8 o'clock over there or something like that?
Yeah, 8:30.
Dang. I need to get to the West Coast, man.
Yeah. Is it still daylight there too?
Yeah, the sun's just now setting.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, Erica, it was a blessing to meet you. Praying for good things for you on your future, and for what the Lord's doing right now in San Francisco is really cool. Hang in there.
Thank you.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Good night, Erica.
Good night. Bye.
Yep. Bye.
See you later.
So, Cal, one thing with the time difference, you know me. I've never been a morning person whatsoever, but yeah, I'm a morning person on the West Coast. I think my body was made for the West Coast, because the whole time I was there, I was getting up, like 7 or 8 in the morning, because it was like 10 o'clock here. I was like ready to go at like 7 or 8. That's never been the case for me living out here. Never.
We should probably move to the West Coast. We may be more productive people. Real facts. I am by no means a morning person, but because of work, I have to be. So, like, normally my body's awake at like 8:30, and I hate it. It's terrible. And like, I've been getting maybe 6 hours of sleep, and like feeling not terribly dead. So that's how I know I'm getting older. I'm like, this really sucks. I can't sleep in anymore. Like, I guess this is how my mom does it, because my mom doesn't sleep at all. Like, I feel like she gets by on power naps.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh gosh, this is actually really happening. Like, yeah, maybe if I move to the West Coast, I'll be the master of productive time or something crazy like that. Who knows? Get a lot of things accomplished.
That's a trip, man. Well, dude, Erica's story. Dude, I'm so glad she shared it. Yeah, just with she pretty much shared most of that when I met her, and yeah, just really solid stuff. Hers is one of those stories that I feel like needs to be shared and heard by more people. So I was glad to have her share on here.
Definitely, I love like the rawness in her heart about like just where she was. Like, there was no part of her testimony that I felt like sugar coated or anything like that. Like, a lot of it was just what it was. And like, coming from a place of being like, she mentioned like being prideful about her grades and being self-sufficient and being like known as a person to make moves and stuff, to actually finding rest in Christ and who she is. Like, that is such a miracle. It's such a miracle. So even when the moves can't be made, like, there's still no loss in identity or purpose. And Yeah, just to even hear her talk like joyfully about everything that she's been through, despite how like really messed up it was, and to know like how bright her future is. Like, not a lot of people really can't afford to live in San Francisco. Like,
Yeah.
cost of living out there is insane, but she's doing it, and I feel like she's anointed to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. Yeah. So we'll try to have some more guests from out that area that I met back in November soon. That's my hope, because there are a lot of people, with I don't know if I would say similar stories, but like stories that were just really real and raw out there, and just like crazy transformations that God's done on their hearts and in their lives. So I love what's happening out there. I know I've referenced it several times in these conversations, but never gone into like great detail about like that trip that I took. But it's gonna keep coming up from time to time. I could do a whole podcast series on it, I guess, but I don't know if that's really necessary. But yeah, definitely a lot of cool things that God's doing through that ministry. So, but yeah, we'll end there, Cal. And thanks for being a trooper today, man. That's been a lot of talking.
Oh, it's good. It's fun, dude. I mean, like, I do love it. I do enjoy it. My body seems tired, but like mentally, I'm awake. So
Yeah, you're good.
it's good.
Yeah,
It's
well,
good, man. I appreciate you having me be a part of it, man. Like every time.
yeah, for
I
sure.
really do honestly appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, indeed, and thank you for being a part of it. And yeah, I don't know, it's really, I don't know, really special to me to have you be a part, and for like this long. That I think we put out the first episodes maybe almost 4 years ago now. Does that sound right? It was, I don't remember, but
I want to say it was at least close to 4 years. Yeah.
yeah. And so we'll be taking a break here for an undetermined, some amount of time. I'll be working on that other project. So I think I mentioned it before. You're going to hop on to bit.ly /Mozug Media to keep up with future happenings. And also, we'll be posting future podcasts for Let God Die. But until then,